It is so cold in this room. Just needed everyone to know that. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my favorites by month for the second half of the year. So I have done this before. I feel like I did this last year around this time as well, but in the middle of the year I talked about the books that I liked, like my favorite books by month. Now, I'll leave that video linked above if you want to see the first half of the year. I think it came out in July, June or July, somewhere in there. But the idea behind this is that I keep track in my bullet journal. Actually, I'll show you right here. I keep track in my bullet journal. At the very beginning, this is just something fun that I do for myself. I keep track of like all the books and my favorites for each month. So I go through and I have every single month and I'll write down the favorite of that specific month. I thought it was kind of fun to share it with you. So like I said, I've done the first half of the year in the middle of the summer, but today we are going to be doing the second half of the year, starting in July and going all the way up to December. So I've got the stack right here. I'm ready to go. Let's dive in. I feel like all of these, looking at my list, all of these got 5 stars. So I don't know if that was true for the first half of the year. I feel like it was, but for sure in this video, everything got 5 stars. So the very first book for July is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I feel like this is not a surprise at all. Again, my copy has been lent out to a friend, so I don't have it yet, but I can't wait to have it back in my grasp because I missed it. But this book is one that I talk about so much. But the idea behind it is we follow 3 separate women, and they have all been stood up on Valentine's Day by the same man. Now, they don't know that he has stood up other ladies. They just know that he has stood them up. And so the story switches back and forth between all 3 of these women's perspectives. And it is way more than that. It sounds like just a terrible book about a cheating scumbag, but there's so much more to the story than that. And I had never read a Beth O'Leary book before. I read this book for my Booktube Made Me series. I did an edition for G from Book Roast, or an episode for G from Book Roast in July. And I read quite a few things that I actually really enjoyed. And this is one of the ones that I read for her for that video. And again, I'd never read a Beth O'Leary book. I'd heard really good things. All of her books sound interesting to me in one way or the other, but I'd never given anyone a shot until I heard her talk about this one. And this one just sounded so interesting, the way that it was set up. And I dived in, not really knowing what to expect, and it took me heart and soul. I love a good plot twist. That's usually what'll make or break a book for me, is if I don't like it, but the plot twist is amazing at the end, then I'll love it. With this one, it was amazing from the get-go, but the plot twists, because they were multiple, were so good, and it made you kind of second guess everything you thought you knew. And what I loved about the writing is that Beth O'Leary has this fantastic way of making you feel for every single one of these women. Even Carter, the guy himself, Joseph Carter, you kind of feel for him and you kind of like him as a person, even though he's doing all of this and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And so you have these 3 women, and by the end of it, you want him to be like with all 3 of these women. You can see their relationship. You can kind of see why they work, and you really like them individually. And so then as the story progresses, everything makes sense. Again, I think the plot twists really did it for me. I was already on the edge of my seat, and then that happened, and I remember being in the car. I was listening to it on my drive home, I think, from work, and I out loud said what just happened? It had so many emotional responses from me, and now I'm obsessed with Beth O'Leary's writing, and I want to read everything by this author because I think she did so well with this one and crafting this book. And I feel like even if something I said doesn't sound quite up your alley, I feel like you should give it a chance because there's so many layers to it. And I've said before, I gifted this, or I let my coworker borrow this at one point, and she's not a huge reader, and I gave it to her because I thought this would be a good one to ease her back in, and she read it within a couple of days because it just kind of grabs you. And I just feel like that's a good testament to how good this book is. Anyway, this was not me trying to convince you to read it. This was my favorite from July, and I'm obsessed with this book. I am literally obsessed with this book. For August, I think I had a lot of really good books for August, but the one that I picked as my favorite was The Monarchs, and this is by Cass Morgan and Daniel Page. This is the second book in the Ravens duology, and I read the first one, The Ravens, last August, I want to say, and it's kind of got a semi-dark, it's not really dark academia, it's more just like, I consider it light academia because it does have that like setting that's set at college, but it's not like has all of the really deep subjects you would expect from a dark academia book. Anyway, the story takes place at a college campus, and there's this sorority called the Ravens. That's not like their actual name, but like they referred to as the Ravens. And they are thought to be super, super picky as far as who is invited into their sorority, but you find out as the reader that's not actually true. It's actually a coven of witches, and the people who are inducted into this coven have to be witches, and that's why they're so picky, is they only allow witches in. The story follows two perspectives specifically. We've got Vivi and Scarlet, and Vivi is a freshman. It's actually, the first book takes place in the first semester, and the Monarchs takes place in the second semester, so it really takes place over the course of one school year. So Vivi is a freshman, and she is coming to college for the first time, obviously, and she doesn't realize that she has magical powers, and so she gets kind of inducted into this society, and her big becomes this woman named Scarlet. She's kind of a legacy at this point, and she is very Southern Belle, very put together, and she does not want to be Vivi's big. She and Vivi don't get along very well at the beginning. And she's also the pledge master this year. She is training to become the sorority president, and so in order to do so, the current sorority president kind of gives her this title, gives her this responsibility of being the pledge master, and kind of giving her just like a trial run as far as being in charge of something. And so you have the two of them, but there's also a whole lot of extra stuff going on behind the scenes of like, there's kind of someone out to get the sorority, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So in this book, it takes place after all the events of the first book, and there's now a rival sorority that has possible magical powers on campus, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So these are such fun books. I get sucked in wholeheartedly. These are perfect if you like those witchy vibes. It's just perfect for like early fall because, again, it has those witchy vibes, but it's very chill. It has all of the ideas and the themes of being in college for the first time and kind of finding your friends and finding your group. And especially in the first book, because all of these pledges are working together, and you kind of have that like, not found family, but a little bit of a found family feel. And it's just really sweet, and I like seeing what's going on. And then of course there's all this extra drama behind the scenes as far as like the extra stuff that's going on that I can't tell you about because spoilers. But I loved the first one so much. I was really, really hyped for this one, and I was really afraid that I was getting too in my head and that I wasn't going to like it nearly as much as the first one because I had hyped it so high up in my head, and it still blew it out of the water. I still love the writing style of these two women. They mesh really well together. I've never read either of these. That's not true. I think I've read something from Daniel Page separately, so like I don't know if one person wrote one person's perspective and the other person wrote the others, or if they just kind of wrote it together. I don't really know, but the writing style was really, really seamless throughout it, which I'm never quite sure how it's going to be with a writing duo. So that was beautiful, and it just kind of grabbed me. And like, it'd been a whole year since I read the first one, so I was worried that like some things weren't going to stick out in my head, or I was going to have to find like a synopsis somewhere to remind myself what happened. And they do a very good job of reminding you. And so like I went in and I was like, within pages I was like, right, I remember exactly what's going on. And the fact that it had been, again, a whole year and I was still able to recall a lot of stuff was kind of awesome. So I really loved the writing. They really sucked me in, and I thought this one was going to be a meh book because I'd hyped it up so much, and it was amazing. It was so good. The next one for September is Hitch to a Gunslinger by Michelle McLean. I will try not to talk about this one too much because I feel like I've talked about this one in at least 3 videos in this month alone, I swear. And so this one, like I said, I read in September and I adored it. It's a Western book. It follows Gray Quickshot Woodson, who was a gunslinger, and he's looking to get out. He kind of wants to retire. He really just wants to sleep all day. Like, he just wants to take naps. It's a little bit of an older romance. I think he's closer to 40, if I am correct. And she is in her 30s. I might be wrong on that, but I feel like they're a little bit older. And he just wants to retire. He's done with the gunslinger game. He got in by accident. He's just done. And so he's searching the world for a place to retire and settle down, and he runs across this place called Desolation, which is a town that basically is a safe haven for a bunch of people who are running away from different things from their past. So everyone is there for a very specific reason. And so he runs across this woman named Mercy, and Mercy's having some issues because there's a guy in town that really, really wants her land. Her father has recently passed away, and therefore the land has been given to her. She wants to keep it. She's happy with her farm. It has an apple orchard. That's how she makes her money. She does not want to let it go. And this guy is doing everything in his power to kind of get the land from her. He offers to buy it at a ridiculously high price. He offers to marry her, and she's like, I'm good, yo. And so like basically he's done everything except for straight up kill her to get the land. And so in a way to protect herself, she sees Quickshot and goes, oh, that's Quickshot. Y'all didn't know? That's my fiance. And they end up getting in this fake engagement of sorts where she'll let him sleep if he just kind of like is around and looks menacing so that she can have protection from this guy. And so it's their romance, and it's just so fun. I love it so much. And I just fell head over heels. Again, it's a Western. I don't like Westerns. It shouldn't have worked for me, and everything about it worked for me. So yeah. Oh, that was a good one. The next one is one that I've forgotten the author's name, and now I feel bad, but it's Choosing Theo. I read this in October, and this was for that monster romance vlog of sorts that I did. It was like alien with a monster romance is kind of what it turned into. And this is an alien romance that my friend Taylor has raved about for so long, and I knew I would like it because she likes it. She and I, again, have such similar opinions on romances. Well, almost most books in general, but specifically romances. And so I knew I was going to like it. I didn't realize I was going to like it as much as I did. I flew through this book in like, I think a day. Maybe two. I think I might have given it a couple of days because I was working. I flew through this so quickly. So the idea behind this is, I'm forgetting all of our character names because I have a terrible memory, but our main female lead basically gets like kidnapped from her planet and taken to this other planet and dropped off. And there's a reason she's been dropped off, but like we don't know what that is right away. And so this society kind of takes her in, and she discovers that they are like, there's levels within the solar system, and like Earth is pretty low down, so they can't know that there are other life forms out there, but the planet she lands on does have that clearance. And so they're able to kind of explain to her the system, and the planet they live on is suffering from population. There's a lot of births, but all the births are male, and they're kind of suffering from the fact that there are not very many female. And so the female, they have a whole system of like the female teaming up and kind of getting married, and like their marriage lasts a few months to see if you actually are compatible and can produce an heir. And then if they decided that we're good, they can move on. And that's their way of kind of like repopulating. And they're just trying to get more females because females are thought of as super highly. So in order for her to stay on this planet, because of the rules and like everything that's going on, she kind of knows about other life forms now, so she can't go back to Earth. So they basically say you have to live on this planet for a year, pick a husband to live with. And so you've got this guy named Theo who is looked at differently. I don't know if you can tell by the cover, he has all these markings on him, and what you and I can see, they look kind of like tattoos, but in the story, everyone on this planet has those kind of markings, except for they're relatively sheer and like a little sometimes clear, like you can see them, but they're very light. Whereas with him, he was in an accident when he was younger, so all of his markings have turned into burn markings, and so they're all like very vivid and dark. And so she, being human, just sees them as tattoos and goes, that guy's attractive, okay, great, I'll pick him. And no one else on the planet would pick him because in their eyes he is now not attractive because of those markings. And so it's their relationship and their romance, and it's super cute. These aliens are very humanoid. The only difference is that they are generally just like overall a little bit bigger, like taller, bigger, broader, that kind of thing, but they're all humanoid in shape, which probably worked in advantage as far as like not having any kind of weird physical things that I would think twice at. This one, again, the romance was great. It was really sweet to see these characters. I loved seeing the characters of Theo and this woman just kind of like growing into their own. Theo is such a sweetheart. I want to protect him, and I want to read other things in the series. I think there's like 6 books at this point, and they follow like, I think, Theo's family members. Maybe not all of them, but the next couple at least do. It was just I don't have any grand reason why this one was just so good, but it was just so good. And if you like romances, and if you like alien romances, well, if you just like romances in general, I think you are sleeping on this one, and this author needs to be talked about way more because she's just honestly amazing. The next one, which is November, is the second in the Gunslinger series, which is the Gunslinger's Guide to Avoiding Matrimony, again, by Michelle McLean. This is the same town, like I mentioned earlier, Desolation. We have this new guy, his name is Adam, I believe. Yes, Adam comes into this town, and he, again, is trying to escape his past. There's someone out there trying to get him, and he's just trying to find this place to hide away. Since the first book, Desolation has become a little overpopulated, and so in order to kind of keep it down so that people don't keep coming in, and then they get super big, that people find them. The point of this town is to be hidden. So there's now a rule that if you're new in the town, you have 1 month to either get married or find a job and keep that job. Otherwise, if you don't have either of those, you have to leave the town. And that's their way of kind of like controlling the population and making sure that everyone who lives in the town is contributing to the town as a whole. So Adam comes into this town. At the time he comes into the town, they're having basically a mass marriage ceremony, which is the people who are in town, unattached, trying to find a reason to stay, will come to this place and they will get married with someone, and that's their way of kind of staying. And so he runs into this woman named Nora, and Nora and him get in this argument and end up saying the right thing at the right time and somehow end up getting married at this mass ceremony. And so it's this story of him trying to find a job so he can get out of this marriage, because neither of them realized that they were actually getting married and saying like the right things at the right time. Nora wants a husband for very specific reasons, for like legal land reasons. And so there's just like this mix of like her trying to keep him and also trying to make every job that he has terrible so that he gets fired from every single job. So the only reason he can stay would be he would be forced to marry her. And he is worried about his past coming to find him. So it's their relationship. I love seeing this town again. I was really excited to dive back into the story and all these characters. I didn't realize it was going to be the same town with the same people. And the couple from the first book is really prevalent in this one. And I wasn't sure that was going to happen. I thought it was going to be a totally different situation. And so that was a pleasant surprise of being able to see all the same characters again and having this town that I've already grown to love and all the side characters I've grown to love be in this book as well. So November wasn't the best reading month because the first book is definitely better than this one in my opinion, but this was definitely by far my favorite in November. I didn't read a whole lot in November, but this was amazing. And for December, this one might be a little bit of a surprise, maybe not. If you've seen my cozy reading blog, then this probably won't be a surprise to you at all, and that's the Matzo Ball. And this is by Jean Meltzer. This is a Hanukkah romance that I devoured, literally devoured in like one day. Not quite. I finished it over the course of technically 3 days, but I did my chunk of reading super late at night one night, and I'm obsessed. This book, like I said, is a Hanukkah romance. We follow our main characters, Rachel and Jacob, and Rachel is a nice Jewish girl. It says here on the back, like her father is like a rabbi, like the rabbi of the rabbis. She's very involved in the Jewish community, but she's chronically ill and needs some good income, and so the way to do that is she writes Christmas romances. She's kind of obsessed with Christmas. She writes under a pen name, and she just loves all that fuzzy, cozy, like Hallmark vibes. And so at the beginning of the book, her publisher basically says, like, we're done with the Christmas. Your last book didn't do so hot. We don't really want to do any more Christmas romances, but we want you to do a Hanukkah romance. Seeing as you're Jewish, we think this would be a great thing for you. You already know how to write really good romances. This will be perfect. And she's like, oh crap, now what? And so she ends up connecting with her old childhood camp rival, Jacob. And they kind of have like a past of sorts. And he is this big multi-millionaire guy who like throws parties, basically, is like his job. And he's throwing a matzo ball, or this thing called the Matzo Ball Max, with the ending at the Matzo Ball. And so she's trying to get a ticket to the Matzo Ball because she thinks if she goes to this big party, then that's going to be her way to like get ideas for her writing. And so it's the two of them reconnecting, and there's way more to it than that. It was amazing. I fell in love with these characters from like page one, and I just seriously thought they were so cute. I've now deep dived into the rest of Jean Meltzer's books, which honestly is not that much. There's really one more, and then a new one coming out in 2023. So very excited about that. They all have Jewish main characters because the author herself is Jewish. It does come from own voices as well. because the author does suffer from a chronic illness. So she has the same thing as our main character, who suffers from ME, or the chronic fatigue syndrome. Is the more common name. And so it's really beautiful to see the story that has all of those beautiful, cozy, fuzzy, warm romance vibes that you love to see, all the emotions, the ups and the downs of a romance that you expect, with very interesting, serious conversations throughout this book about her and her chronic illness, him and his he's kind of come from a really tough family background, so his mother was chronically ill as well, and his father was kind of not really in the picture, and he has a very complicated relationship with his father, so he considers his home, he came from a broken home, that's how he references his own life. And so to see that and see how he refers to his parents, it's really tough. It really tackles some interesting and some really kind of deeper conversations without losing the spark of romance that you get. And I loved that about it. I loved that it did that. So yeah, that one was my favorite in December, and I am now obsessed with this author. It's a problem. And that's it. Those are the list of books that I liked. Every book, my favorite book from every month in the second half of the year. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've, again, as always, let me know if you've read the books that I mentioned in this video, or if there's a book that you remember liking from one month or the other. Like, you have favorites like this? Do you kind of keep lists? Let me know. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you'd like to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to check all that out, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!